Hello everyone. Today we will be finishing up our discussion of data collection with an overview of cause and effect. So the first thing that we'll look at is what is a cause and effect statement? Well, the simple answer is that a cause and effect statement is just saying X causes Y, or Y occurs as a result of X, whichever way you prefer to phrase that. When we are dealing with cause and effect relationships, it's important to know the difference between correlation and causation. Causation is where we have one thing that occurs as a result of the other thing. So again, X causes Y. Correlation is where we have some kind of association between those two. So it could be as X increases, Y increases, or as X increases, Y decreases, or any of those kinds of things. Basically, there's a clear relationship between those things, but that is not the same as saying that one causes the other. If you learn nothing else from this video, correlation is not the same thing as causation. If we have a correlation between two variables, say we have a correlation between X and Y, that could mean one of many things. So it could mean that X causes Y. It could also mean that Y causes X. Or it could mean that X and Y are both caused by some other thing, which we could call C. And X and Y are not necessarily causing each other, but C is causing both of them. Or we could have two other causes, C1 and C2, that are correlated with each other, or one causes the other. And those are the things that cause X and Y. So if there's a correlation between two things, it could mean a causation, but it could also mean quite a few other things. So correlation, not the same thing as causation. The classic example of this is you'll hear stuff like ice cream sales and drowning deaths correlate pretty strongly with one another. Well, that's because both of those things tend to occur more during the summer months. That does not mean that ice cream sales cause drowning deaths. When we're dealing with scenarios where we want to try to find cause and effect relationships, there's a few different kinds of studies that we can use to sort of help us make these determinations. The simplest one of these is what we call an observational study. That's basically where we have a group of people or whatever individuals, and we're just going to monitor them over some period of time. So that would be something like maybe monitoring smokers versus non-smokers over some period of time to keep track of the difference in rates of developing lung cancer, for instance. In a clinical study or trial, basically we are trying to determine the effectiveness of some kind of treatment by essentially administering that treatment to see what the effect is or what the results are from that. One thing about this is that we can run into something that we call confounding variables. A confounding variable is basically just some other variable besides the treatment itself that could produce the same effect as whatever we're observing that we think is being caused by the treatment. So for this reason, usually we'll do clinical studies in the form of what we call controlled studies. And in this case, we have a treatment group and a control group. Basically, this means that we have two groups involved in the study. The treatment group is whatever group is being given the treatment. The control group is not being given the treatment, and we're comparing these two groups. This is basically just a way to try to eliminate the influence of confounding variables in the results of our study to the extent that we possibly can. One type of controlled study is a randomized controlled study. This is where we randomly select all of the study participants to be part of either the treatment group or the control group. One other type of controlled study is what we call a controlled placebo study. Now, this brings us to the concept of the placebo effect and what is a placebo? Well, the placebo effect is where we have people that are not receiving treatment that think that they are receiving treatment, and as a result of that, positive results are reported. So the way we control for this is we give the control group in a controlled study a placebo, which is you could think of it as a fake treatment. So the classic example of this would be like the sugar pill. It does absolutely nothing, but you might have people that receive the placebo that still say, I have improvement in my headache symptoms or whatever as a result of taking this, when really it's just they think that they're receiving treatment when they actually aren't. So a controlled placebo study would be a study where we are giving the control group a placebo. And this is done in an effort to control for the placebo effect, try to limit the influence that the placebo effect has in our results. The last couple things we'll look at are blind and double-blind studies. This is basically just where we are making it so that different groups involved in the study do not know which group different participants are in. So what does that mean? Well, in the case of a blind study, that means that people who are participating in the study do not know if they are part of the treatment group or the control group. In a double-blind study, not only do the participants in the study not know which group they're in, but also the people who are collecting the data don't know if whoever they're collecting data on at the moment is in the control group or the treatment group. So this way, we basically don't find out until after all the data has been collected who was in what groups. So this makes it so that we don't have bias from people knowing which group they're in, and we don't have bias from people collecting the data knowing, oh, this person's in the treatment group or this person's in the control group. Thank you for watching as always, and I am of course happy to help with whatever questions you have.